Today, let's talk about some design stuff. Let's talk about my most successful failure of design of specials. And the boomer was not it. This is from Left 4 Dead. I just want to use this as an example though for something. So let's just take a look at the boomer for a second, and we're going to talk about kind of the role he fills. So if the boomer, if you're not familiar, is this gross creature in the Left 4 Dead series that spews bile on you. And once you get covered in bile, you can't see what you're doing. It's just chaos because creatures are coming and charging at you. They target you in particular, and you can't see anything, and it's just chaos, right? But the cool thing is you hear this gurgling ahead of time, and so you have this terror. Left 4 Dead really lives in the horror space, right? And so we want to have you having this terror, and instead of having that horrible thing happen to you, you could shoot it and it explodes, and you've relief, right? It's not going to get covered in bile. And so we have this threat of horrible thing happening to you, but you can resolve it. Now, for Left 4 Dead, admittedly, we went a little bit of a different way. And so we created what we call the flasher. And so here we have the flasher. This is the concept sheet for it. So now it's called the light guy here because until you put it into the game, I don't like to name things. I like to think of what would the characters scream out, right? They wouldn't scream out some like, oh, that's the Barthol dragon of no, they're going to yell what they see, right? And they're going to be scared. And so they don't call him the light guy, they call him the flasher. And he creates a super bright creature, and it distracts players. And that's his goal, right? And so if you look at some of this stuff up in here, this is kind of underwater stuff. Because if you think about what is zero G on Earth, the closest thing we have to zero G on Earth is underwater. And so we pulled a lot of reference from there. It's kind of what we were going for in things. And like luminescence as kind of a disorienting weapon is actually used in the underwater as well. So, right. So it's like good grounding there. And we have our goals. We have our goals of it's a creature that spawns in. He actually spawns in with common, and he's super bright. And so you have players who want to target him over other creatures, right? Because a lot of when you're designing specials is you're trying to get people to think about what they're targeting and prioritize and change their priorities. And in this case, the minute this guy shows up on screen, you want to take care of him as fast as you can. And I got a good example of why. So there you can see the gooper. Yeah, I have a lot of mods on. But here you can see the gooper kind of hidden in the flasher. The flasher is really, really bright, overtaking the area. We're going to ignore the friendly fire that I'm doing. But then right there, there's a brute coming after the flasher here, and the brute over here is hitting a bunch. Now you can barely see the brute in this because it's so overwhelming, and I'm the only one prioritizing the flasher in this case because there you can see the brute and they're prioritizing him, which is probably smart. But right, it's this chaos, and this is what we wanted. We wanted just this chaos, and look how bright this is, and it's crazy. But like one of the negative reviews was this one that's in Braille, and it says I can't see because of the flasher. So when we were actually playtesting this, I'll get to the problem playtesting, but we actually had some developers be like, oh, you can't do this character because it's too bright and it'll have epilepsy problems. Epilepsy's flashing. It's not the brightness. There's other problems with the brightness, but we'll get to that. But so this is to me, success of it caught us so much chaos that you can't really see what's going on. And then here's another version of the flasher. And notice how it just changes the scene, and we get this color change, and all of a sudden I'm prioritizing the flasher and nobody else can see me, and I get grabbed, right? This is it working. This is it working as intended. It's changed the way everything looks. It's chaotic. We want to focus on it. And when we focus on that, we're making mistakes and being taken down. That is success. But that over brightness is a problem. And the over brightness is a problem for a couple things. One, it varies on computers. Some people have a radically different experience. And we actually have a setting that you can go in and say that to mute kind of the feature of this, but it still hides the flasher. The other thing is new players have a hard time picking up the flasher and being able to actually target him. Instead, they're just overwhelmed. Now, experienced players quickly learn how to target the flasher no matter what. And so they get used to it. But that initial thing has given us negative reviews. And so for that alone, I don't think you want to use the flasher and explore this space because it's just really problematic that players are that angry that they leave you a negative review about one of your creatures. And they're super dismissive of it because they don't understand what we were going for. But that's what I'm saying is like, I was successful in all of my goals. It is disorientating. It changes the way everything looks. People prioritize it. It comes in, because when you ever boom somebody and no commons come, it comes in with common. And I'll show you the best part in a minute. But it does all these positive things, but it's still a negative for players. And it's enough of a negative that if we did an Anacrusis 2, I don't think I would include the flasher or try something different. We actually tried the dark flasher, which muted. And if you've ever played like a Left 4 Dead map where people didn't know lighting and it just feels really claustrophobic and you can't see even with the flashlight, like it's a different feeling. And I find that one more fatiguing. Like this is fatiguing if this is on all the time, but I feel that really fatiguing. And it just never really quite worked. It had the same effect. You know, we tried some things here where we tried with having it wait to fire off and like all these different things and just kept running into problems. But the biggest problem we had and why it got into the shipping state the way it did was our playtests were really problematic because the game was too hard. And this wasn't the individual specials. This was the actual director. It just would be unrelenting. It would get in this loop that it just sent everything in its arsenal against you all the time. And like, we would think that was fixed. We would think that would resolve. And then players would play at a different speed and that would cause issues. And it's one of the reasons why. So first, I just want to say like, that's my fault. That's my fault that we got to that point and that we couldn't do play testing and we did like months and months of bringing people in who just got slaughtered. And that is my fault. But it was also my fault that I didn't put my foot down harder in the beginning and say, we build the simplest thing first, get that to work so that we can test these specials and have an understanding, and then build the more complicated. Instead, we started with the more complicated, and it really didn't change until like the summer before shipping that we had a better handle on it, where it actually is really reactive to your skill level in an intelligent way versus just overwhelming you. And that hurt us a lot because that didn't get us to understand some of our own creatures in here, except for how we played. And we were already good and experts at it. And so when we brought playtesters in, we weren't getting the detailed information from them. Instead, we were getting the overwhelmed information of just getting their ass kicked, even if the flasher didn't show up. But here is where the flasher, to me, really excelled. So first, if you notice, it's called the Cosmic Flasher here because this is actually one of the specials that the community updated. And it's updated with, you'll see when I spawn in, the common are purple, and they're more powerful than normal common. And they really become just like hell on earth, and it's really fun. But so what I'm doing is I'm running ahead so that I can find a good spot to spawn. I'm going to spawn, and when I spawn in, I instantly spawn in with creatures. Originally, we had it where you didn't spawn in with creatures, and it was kind of frustrating because sometimes you'd be there. And if you notice, I don't get the light effect because I am the flasher. We don't want to disorientate me. We want to disorientate the players, so we don't give it to you. And it's one of those things you have to kind of understand. For each player, they're going to be absorbing how you look and see and how much they can see you differently. And after a while, you learn to play that. But it is like a skill of understanding that part of it. But the cool thing is, I just right-click there and I targeted that player. So I can take all of these specials and much like the boomer could choose to vomit on somebody, I can choose to target somebody. And this becomes really powerful and chaotic and cool. That wasn't in the original version of Versus. That's something that came later. And then we kind of updated it with the community update. And so that's why it stays in, because we play a lot of Versus. And for Versus, this is super powerful and fun. And we have an understanding as we play the impact and the expression that the flasher is going to have in this space. But it's still a failure, right? I think when you get negative reviews for something, you have to be honest about it and say, yeah, this is a bit overwhelming, even though it's really cool. And some of that is just different video cards process it in different ways, but right, it's causing chaos. It's changing my priorities of my attacks, and it's giving cover for other enemies to come in. And this is where I think the Anacrusis excels even way more than Left 4 Dead, is coordinated attacks by specials. When you have a team working together. The other day, we just happened to have teams that were outweighted, and the really good team was just able to decimate the other team. And one of the reasons why is we never spawned in solo. We always waited for each other and spawned in together and worked as a team. and the Versus is really set up for that. If you've never played Versus with Dana Crucis and you want to, we're going to play Wednesday night again as a scheduled game. There's pickup games every so often as well. Jump in and give it a shot. You can actually play solo, and you can make the spawn timer 0, so you can just keep spawning as a special and try all the different specials and kind of get a handle of them. It does take some practice, though. The skill level is different than in Left 4 Dead, and just remember you're not playing Left 4 Dead. While there's some similarities between the games for sure, there's enough differences that you kind of have to learn them because they have a big impact on the strategies you use, and especially working together. That is an important thing. So the Flasher's in. I like the Flasher. The Flasher is both successful and a failure.